Business with a servant's heart. Welcome to the podcast. Inspiration, motivation takes. Listen to the podcast. We're all about to talk about life. Our guests will share their life story. We want you to success in life and business. We're ready and we will start shortly. We're gonna talk about life. We're going to speak on business. You're gonna shine bright. We are going to witness business with a servant's heart. With hosts Steve, Ramon, and Ray. Inspiration, education talks. Listen to the podcast.
Welcome to the world of a business owner, juggling a whirlwind of responsibilities 2 to 5 years into the journey. Now, envision the transformative power of a mentor guiding you towards efficiency, fostering communication skills, and setting realistic goals. This mentor is the key molding a successful, profitable, socially conscious company. Harness the power of mentorship and let your business thrive. BrainShare Business Mentors is one of the top 10 mentoring firms in the San Francisco Bay Area. Let us help you build the business of your dreams. Select your path and get started today.
Welcome, everyone, to Doing Business with a Servant's Heart podcast. Doing business in life with a purpose or a why. Serving others and, yes, achieving success. I'm your host, Steve Ramona. We created this show for you because we want everyone to be motivated, inspired, and educated to make an impact in your world. Not the world, but in your world. As you listen to this incredible guest I have today, I want you to think about how you serve today and what impact will that service create today. Thank my two sponsors, BrainShare.us. Drive business success and sustainability with BrainShare Business Mentors, where your business flourishes and your vision comes to life. Check out the link in the show notes. And then pitchdb.com. Be a guest in over 3 million podcasts. Speak at over 11,000 conferences and much more. Build your thought leader platform with incredible opportunity to show who you are. And thinking of a thought leader, this gentleman today I have is an extreme thought leader, and he comes from that servant heart mindset, which is why he's on Doing Business with a Servant's Heart. Conrad, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Steve. It's a pleasure to be here.
So let's talk about this vision and awareness. We mentioned in the green room before, what's vision awareness to you?
A loaded question, that's for sure.
I start big and then come down.
Yeah, no, I think on a very pragmatic level, vision and awareness is, it's really a self-study in what you understand and what you're trying to accomplish. And it's sort of a picture, to your point, you said earlier, Steve, like, what is it the impact that you want to make on your world? And not to say the world, because there's something to be said about recognizing, I don't want to say delusions in vision, but I also want to recognize what everyone's individual impact can be. Because I think a lot of us tend to look at the bigger picture at large and say, well, there's nothing I can do about it. It's too big for me. Whereas if you really kind of tone down that subject matter a little bit and go, hey, I want to pay attention to what's within my sphere of influence, within my circle, within my ecosystem and my environment. Okay, cool. What do I want to do there? I think that is something to be said about what vision is to an individual. And then the awareness of that subject from there is then going, okay, what's reasonable for me? What can I do to sort of engineer or process my way towards creating that impact? Forgive me for speaking in those types of terms, but plays a lot into my background of just how I think and who I am from a logic standpoint. It's kind of how I've been raised and built. Hope that answers your question.
It does, and I like that. And you got what I said, your world. And we hear a lot people talk about, hey, change the world, change the world. I want to change the world. I know you do. But it's like, do I take, one bite of the elephant, or do I eat half the elephant at one time? I don't know. I always say that. I'm not a big fan of that phrase, but it's really true. You don't take a big portion, take a little bit. And I always say, me and you, Conrad, if we change our sphere and they come together like we've come together to work together, all these spheres come together. Now the world becomes more achievable and helping. than going, I'm going to change ageism. I'm going out, how much you can impact, because impact's the key. What I like about what you say is what feels like the lowest point in your entrepreneurial career, because when you become low, awareness and vision change.
Yeah, that's, oh man, it's so easy. I mean, this is sort of like the study in depression, right? When you start to really look at it from an objective standpoint, what is that doing to you? What does that experience look like and feel like? And what it really says is it kind of diminishes any sense of potential that you might have as to what's possible. And it kind of puts you in this rut where you think, hey, I don't think I have any impact. I don't think I have any potential for impact. And part of the argument in this case, like given we're kind of living in the present state, I remember at my low point in particular, I just felt like none of this is going to change and there's nothing I can do about it, right? Like there isn't even a sense of hope that, hey, maybe right now situation is tough, but give it time, give it effort, make some changes, and you'll start to recognize that there's opportunity there. It's really hard to see the light behind the door when the door is completely like closed shut and like all of the edges around the door are also completely barred from having any light shine throughout. You kind of have to you have to first imagine the possibility that there's something there, and then you kind of have to go for it. And some people will call that a bit of a leap of faith. Other people will call that delusion. But I think at the end of the day, a lot of us can speak from experience that, when you're really in such a low and difficult state, one of the best things to recognize is that others have been there before with you. So there's an empathy that can be drawn. So others can come in and help you and say, hey, listen, you're not the only ones that have gone through this. And then at the same time, you can also say, okay, well, if that's the case, what helped you sort of see opportunities? What helped sort of change your perspective? Just not permanently, but even just enough to give me a sense of direction and where to go. And then, the rest is definitely a struggle. I'm happy to share that particular story in detail if you want, but I think the point of that is to say, things will change if you provide the opportunity to do so. It may not seem immediate, it may not be substantial at first, but just like what we're saying, it's not about changing the entire world all at once. You just need to change what you have particular connection and impact on right now, even if that is very, very little. Getting that little bit of agency may be exactly what you need to move forward and start to grab more agency moving forward.
That's a key word, moving forward. And you're talking about mentorship. I love that you didn't say it, but that's kind of where you're going. You're a low point in your career. Go to a mentor. Are you a business coach? Go to a top business coach. Can I learn from you? Can I, rack your brain a little bit, get some info? Most of the time, we all have servant hearts. That's what I love about this. It's there. You got to ask. With that being said, your awareness is so powerful. Every time I meet with you, and your business is called, WellAware. You really live it because you're a super connector, but you're aware that you want to make that connection stronger than just going, hey, Steve, meet Conrad, Conrad, meet Steve. Good luck. They don't say good luck, but yeah, meet because you guys are great guys. You, like me, give a little detail. Talk about why you do that and how effective it's been.
Yeah, Steve, I think I'm sure a lot of us have experienced this in the past where at no, not to speak foul of anybody who's, either been in a pinch or been in a hurry or, had the right intentions in mind to at least make an introduction and show that like the thoughtfulness of just the introduction itself. That's great. That's awesome. The reason I've decided to take that step up one notch and I've even chosen to play a role of patience with myself and saying, rather than shoot out this intro right away, which granted is probably the best thing I could do in terms of speed and execution. And in some cases, that's exactly what I'm going to do because that's what needs to happen. Urgency is present. Fine. But when I have a little bit of time, I want to create thoughtfulness. I want to create awareness for all parties involved. Hey, Steve, I'm going to introduce you to someone. I'm going to offer to introduce you to someone. And I want you to know exactly who this person is to me. And I really want to emphasize to me in that particular sentence, because I don't want to just say, this is Steve's sales pitch, right? This is Steve, the advertisement. This is Steve, the company. No, this is Steve. This is a guy I've met. This is how well I know him. Here's what he's all about. Here's what I really like about him. Cool. I'm leveraging whoever it is I'm talking to about you. I'm leveraging my relationship with that person for them to have an understanding of how you and I are relating as individuals. I'm sharing that. that creates such a level of warmth to me that, like, when I first experienced it on the other end, I was like, man, like, there's clearly a relationship there. It's not just some random individual, or even if it is someone they just met, like, at least I know that. At least I know the context behind that relationship, even if it is brief.
Yeah.
From there, just being able to dive into what is the actual context behind the introduction? What are we doing here? Is this a networking opportunity? How much has Conrad thought into this particular reason behind why the two of us should be engaging at this particular time? Has he been thinking about something that I said a couple of meetings ago, or just last meeting, or something that came up on my LinkedIn? Like, what is the reason behind why Conrad making these introductions? And it's going to be based on conversations I've had with both parties about what their needs are, what their asks are, who they're looking for in their world of relationships. And I'm basically like almost like a scientist. I'm sort of setting out this hypothesis, like, I think this is the reason why you two should meet. Go ahead and prove or disprove that for me. Reject this intro, accept the intro, take the call, tell me how it goes. Because I want to take that information, and this is sort of my bigger picture thesis right now in the world of connecting. I want to figure out how replicable that particular activity is once you and I have worked out the data that says, these are the exact type of relationships I'm looking for, and this is why we're so successful together. It's because we took the time to really dig into that data. And now as a result, I know to look for every other person that looks just like that and thinks just like that and is like that kind of person to the best of my ability.
That's all you can ask for. Just doing the best. And, sometimes the introduction doesn't work, and that's not a fault of anybody, it just doesn't fit. But, I say, and a lot of people say, your network's your net worth, and you really take it to heart by making those introductions a little stronger, a little more personable, because you want to be worth it to the people. Again, it still may not be when they meet, but since we're on the top of it, you just give those out and let it go. I've had people come back, very infrequent, very one or two times. Why did you introduce me to that person? We do the same thing. It's like, well, you do this, you have this client base, and they personally didn't get it, and that's okay. I just can't see a way to try to give them opportunities to introduce them. So we want to be careful burning bridges with people. You want to keep that bridge open. So when you're doing introduction, what is the first thing that comes to your head? Right off the bat.
Right off the bat. I mean, at this point, I feel like I'm talking about, and this is what I've been telling a lot of people lately when I meet with them. I'm like, I need you to give my brain ideas. So whenever someone tells me like, hey, here's what I'm looking for, here's my opening pitch, especially when I'm meeting with someone who's very new or early on in networking, I'm going to have a very particular conversation with them about why I want specificity in their asks. Because what I'm looking for in my brain more than anything else is this idea, I need an individual name, or I need an individual set of names, or I need a category of people that I can immediately start thinking about. And of course, that's going to be based on my ability to play recall and go, who's everyone I know who's a marketing agency with 2 to 9 employees, right? That's not going to be a necessarily easy thought process in my head. But if you said, I'm looking for a B2B SaaS digital marketing agency on the East Coast, I'm going to think of Adam, right? That's so easy for my brain to do. And so I always sort of like I put a logic tree in front of me and the person I'm working with, and I'm like, here's my logic. Try to understand this for a second. Now start throwing keywords at me and let me see how my brain responds. That's the first thing I think about when I'm thinking about introductions.
You answer like I thought you would, I hoped you would, because that's $1 million tip, which I tell everybody. Don't tell me I'm looking for people that want to make money, or people that want to grow, or people that want to triple their income. I mean, that's, half my network. I've got a large network like you. I love that. Audience, again, specify what you're looking for in every networking group, person that you meet. That's so important. I've got to give you kudos. This is why he's a servant's heart, why he's on my show. I'm 62, and I don't know how old Conrad is, but he's younger. But he taught me something. Slow down my introductions. I used to fire him up really good introductions, but I'm like, I got to get him out with 24 hours. I can wait 48 hours and go through my notes, because when we first met, you had mentioned that. So I've changed myself because of you, and I want to thank you. But this is the power of meeting people. We can learn from each other, right?
Yeah. This is I feel like I'm actually going to take out from one of my current clients, and also he's a provider to me on the personal side as well. But I want to thank Dylan, because he was one of the first people that told me that. And this is sort of an off-topic comment that he'd made, but it was one that really stuck with me. He said, Conrad, I don't really have a lot of time to read books, But as a result, I've chosen to spend a ton of time meeting with people. And I feel like I absorb as much as I possibly can from them with that conversation. Of course, not to the extent of just straight up taking, but basically what Dylan was telling me was like, I try to listen to people as much as I would want to read a book, and just really try to figure out like, what is all this? What does this person know? Like, what are they sharing today? What wisdom do they have to bring to the table? And just like really give them that kind of experience where they're almost like acting as like a present day author interview. And I was like, Dylan, that's so smart. Like you could learn so much from people because we in effect, like we are consolidated books in our own right? We are the amalgamations of all these experiences that we've individually had. And of course, you're not going to know the sort of the summary of it all unless you ask us the questions and say like, hey, what do you guys know? And kind of let their awareness just kind of spill into you, wherever that may be at that point in time.
It's a great story, Conrad. We're all made up of stories. And what is a book? Think and Grow Rich, stories of Napoleon Hill. Start with Why, Simon Sinek, stories about why. I mean, we'll just go book after book and tell Dylan, kudos. That's huge. I'm going to use that because that's really, really good to be able to do introductions. You said two powerful words, ask and questions. Let's talk about the ask part because that is a missing component of people. Oh, I can ask Conrad to be on my show, but what if he says no? He says no, I move on to the next person. Still love Conrad. He didn't want to be on my show. There's nothing wrong with that. Nothing against me. How do you deal with the ask and working with people with asking?
So I think part of a good ask is being very specific. I kind of almost want to play on the sort of the SMART goal concept. Is it a specific thing? Is it a measurable thing? Is it an attainable thing? Is it realistic? Is it time bound? So part of making a good ask is doing something that another person can reasonably respond to. And one of the best ways to do that is you'll recognize if your asks are not working, if people are unable to engage with them. And one of the maybe sort of the weird questions that few people will ever really go to asking because it's sort of a weird ask is like, hey, is my ask reasonable? Like, are you able to execute that ask within X amount of time? It's so weird to kind of task assign somebody that, but that's kind of what an ask is. An ask is a volunteered task that either you can't perform or the specific value of the task is that someone else is performing that ask for you. And as a result, you want to figure out like, can they do it? Can they fit it into their workflow? Can they meet that demand? So I think that's one of the big things I think about when it comes to just the ask itself. Is it objectively possible for someone else to do? Is it within their reason to be able to do it? You can start to get into other subjective considerations like, is it delightful for them to do so? Is there a particular benefit that they can get from doing so?
Yeah.
Not to make it transactional, but to make it transformative, right? Do they get something out of the task by inherently doing it that really brings joy to their day? Can you do something for them in exchange? Like there's nothing wrong with matching in a giving relationship. There's only something wrong with taking, right?
Yeah.
Unquestionably. So yeah, beyond that, I think the rejection stuff is always really fun. Like some of my favorite resources on rejection are like, you go watch the guy who goes and gets rejected by like hundreds of people by just like going out into the world and literally making, random miscellaneous demands upon the strangers of the street. And you'll realize really quickly that after, doing it enough times, your tolerance for rejection becomes infinite. You can hear thousands of no's. So long as everything else in your life is self-sustaining. I will give the sales rep the occasional moment of relief and say, hey man, it's been a tough week.
Exactly. And that's you got to be uncomfortable to be comfortable in business. Entrepreneur or big business doesn't matter. That's just part of the game. And game's the wrong word. Part of the journey of having a business, like we both know. And I love the two trans words that you use, transformative and transactional. Similar words. God, it's hard to say that. Similar words, but such a different meaning. What's it to you?
So I'm going to give my good old business professor, Sharon Wolf, all the credit for transformative versus transactional. One time I was texting her after a couple of years of being out after college and being out in business on my own. And she was checking in with me and she was asking me like, how's everything going? How's business? And I was explaining to her about like some deals that I'd recently been getting into. And she was like, Conrad, is the nature of this relationship transactional or transformational? And I was like, I want to say transactional. I don't like the fact that I have to say that. And I realized what she was talking about. She was saying, why is it that when you're making these relationships, why isn't it when you're performing some type of exchange with these parties, given time, given other relationships, given the types of actions you two are both executing on now, why is it that there isn't an additional, like, based on what the two of you things are doing, is value just exchanging hands, or is there something additional being produced on top of it all? Right? Is there some sort of excess capital? I know you don't like trying to put the business terms around it so people can understand that there's an additional value created on top of that. Well, what is that? Is it even there? Because that's kind of the whole idea. It's not to say that it's alchemy, but it is the whole point of being able to produce something that goes above and beyond just two people moving assets across each other's networks. That's not the point.
No, it's not. And kudos to your professor. That's just spot on. Absolutely spot on what she said. It's another great tip, audience. Take that and run with it, because it's gonna make me be more, again, aware. Talk about WellAware. What is your mission with this business, and what's your goal?
Steve, my goal with WellAware is to provide others with the means to buy back their time, namely so that they can focus on what matters most to them. I've come to live in a world at this point where I've made the sort of the altars of sacrifice, and I've made the sacrifices at the altar, excuse me, in which I chose to put my time ahead of the other things in my life, which I also valued. And I did so in a way because I think to a varying degrees of influence, I thought I wanted certain things, because I thought those things were going to bring me comfort, peace, security, all of that. And what I found was I was sacrificing all of those things in the name of wanting to get all of those things. And it was kind of a very ironic point for me. I realized that for a lot of folks in their realm of business, it's pretty much the same thing. No matter how much you want to cut and slice it, we're all sacrificing time and the energy that we can expend on things that we recognize we value, but are trying to kind of find ways to kind of circumvent having to go through those needs so that we can then afford to, build something else, because that thing will eventually sort of take care of us. And I just want to say that while that definitely has its truths, I think I know we said there isn't such thing as a balance, but I do believe in a harmony between these two sides of work and life, if that's what you want to call it. I think it all is 24 hours and it's just one blend. It's all one experience. So I want people to recognize, what they need to be aware of surrounding their own time and how they're performing this sort of operation of sacrifice. Is that logistic? Does it make sense? Is their operation sustainable? They themselves, they and their business. And where it isn't, or wherever it may not be, and they can recognize it, what can we do to solve that problem right away? What solutions are out there that need to be aware of in order to fix this problem so that they can go and do the things that matter most to them? That's what really WellAware is all about. Beyond that, I would say big picture. I think we all recognize how much time we're wasting. Arguing and complaining and just having all these different types of problems in the world. And I think all of us possess the means and the resource to solve it. Again, going back to the whole idea of the world versus your world, I think we can all have a significant impact on our worlds if we just dedicated some time to it. We get so busy handling all this other stuff. And I think if we can find ways to remove ourselves from those activities, either because we recognize they're not worth it, we recognize that they're not the things that we're supposed to be doing, or we recognize that they need to get done, just that we aren't the ones who need to do them. There are systems, there are other people, there are resources in our world that we can use to make this sustainable. That's what I want people to really recognize. And then I want them to take their free time and go do what matters.
Yeah, that's why I love your business, because it's simplicity with great results. It's got to be simple or people aren't going to do it. They got to do multiple steps. They're going to eventually quit. And I ran health clubs, and that's exactly, I got to show up 3 days a week when I'm busy. Well, as January, February, March comes, like, I'm too busy, I'm not going to the gym. No judge here, but it's just our mindset. We've got to make things simple, especially in business. If it's complex, we're going to go, this tech is way too hard to use. I'm never going to use it. And then it just goes away. So I appreciate you saying that. We have run, I can't believe this, Conrad, but we hit 20, we've hit our time. I want you to come back if you'd like, because there's so much more that we can hit. But how can people get a hold of you?
Steve, my website is www.wearewellaware.com. You can find me on LinkedIn, and I'm more than welcome your audience to send me an email at cruiz, that's my first initial last name, at wellaware.me.
Fantastic. What final words do you want to leave with the audience?
I love to share this quote. It is in all transparency for your awareness. It is a quote that is actually taken from it's an animation that I used to watch as a kid, and they had like a final season reboot later on in life, and there was just this one quote from that final season that really, really took me away. To professionalize it, I tell everybody that it's a quote adaptation from Robert Greene, very famous author. For those who've read like the 48 Laws of Power and the Power of Seduction, that Robert Greene. But there's his book called Mastery. There's a similar section in his book that I think is just the quote can fit in both of these arenas. But the quote is, the decisions you make and the actions that follow are a reflection of who you are. You cannot hide from yourself.
It's powerful. Fits this show perfectly about action. I love that. Conrad, thank you for being an incredible guest. Thank you for taking the time to be on the show. I really appreciate it. I also want to tell the audience, Conrad gave you a bunch of tips here. So use the forward and reverse buttons on the podcast platform, no matter where you're at, or YouTube, wherever. You got those buttons, use them. We'd love for you to watch or listen to the whole show, but there are portions in 5 or 8 minute segments that you love. Listen to it over and over again so it gets deep into you, like transformation versus transactional. Right there, if you learn that, I could definitely see you grow. Also want to remind you of my TV show, Together We Serve. It's every Friday at 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern. And don't forget our swag. Get your Doing Business with a Servant's Heart shirt, hat, hoodie, and get that message out to the world. Let's serve as many people as we can. And as always, I want to thank you for watching or listening to Doing Business with a Servant's Heart. We'll see you on the next episode. Thank you all.